And the goals for our training tonight. So we want you to feel confident and clear on how to get your priorities funded after the training today. So if you came into this training thinking, my school district should be spending more money on mental health support or facilities or putting money toward, anti-racism trainings and things like that. We want to help you do that. We're going to help you find out when and where your school board meetings are in your community or your school budget hearings. Decide who you're inviting to those meetings because there's always power in numbers, and practice sharing your story so that you are able to give public comment. We're going to talk about the importance of that in a little bit here. All right. And I don't have the agenda up, but I believe Imani, I think you're taking it over here. Awesome.
Yep. So this is just a quick question, just to see where everyone's at right now. But we all here, all of us here know that funding is a challenge for schools. But how big of a challenge is that? So we just want to do a quick poll and ask people what percentage of schools are underfunded in our state in Michigan. And you can put it in the chat. Yeah, what percentage do you think out of 100 are our schools underfunded? $50. What else we got? 65, 95. Okay. Very loaded question, yeah. Yeah. Okay. And can we go to the next slide, please? Yep, it's actually 90% of schools are underfunded in Michigan. So some of you are rather close, but it is 90% of schools, and that is schools all across the state, whether in rural areas, whether in the city, whether they're highly populated or low density. It's a statewide issue, and yeah, so despite the recent increase, the funding gap of 4.5 billion a year remains. And that doesn't include facilities, which are a completely different monster in itself. And again, this is a deficit that we see in schools across Michigan, all across the board, regardless of the location or regardless of how many students are going or what students are going. But that is not to say that this isn't very evident in Black and brown schools or low income schools. And then we also have a graph for those who like graphs.
And just to fill in here too, because it's not on the slide, two things. So that 4.5 billion is an estimate, but that does come from the Education Law Center, which we have a report for. So we can share that out at some point in case folks are curious. And then does anybody know, like, just have real quickly why that number doesn't include facilities? So just to let folks know, I'm sure if folks are probably like sure they know about local bonds and millages. Yeah, yep, Kim's got it right. So facilities are paid for by like millage rates and bonds and things like that. So just kind of checking everybody's ed funding knowledge here. So there's that.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
unfortunately, our state, Michigan, we come dead last in school funding growth compared to every other state. So a lot of work we have to do here. And then so just going on the school budgets. So every school board is required to approve their budget before the next fiscal year, which will be this July. The decision-making process, first it must include a budget hearing that's open to all of the public, and it's advertised at least 6 days in advance. And you can see in the chart that the admin actually shapes the budget over the year, and the final decision happens within the elected school boards. So, school budgets they're obviously important. So let's pause for just a minute. And so what do you think the most effective way for us to influence these budgets are? Like what do we think we need to do to make sure that like maybe we hire more social workers or bus drivers? And you can come off mute or you can share it in the chat. But yeah, what do y'all think is the most effective way to use our influence for school board budgets?
So I'm actually just dying to know the answer to this question because I've been to 12 years of school budget meetings and nothing has ever influenced them to change their minds. So I don't have an answer, but I'm really curious what the answer is here.
That's great. And I'm seeing one in the chat here. Telling our stories to legislature, great. Influencing and empowering legislation. Showing the needs of students, giving the reason for funding to be in place to provide students' needs to be met. Yes, absolutely. So while there isn't necessarily a simple answer to this question, we do have, one method here that we're going to talk about, and that is sharing our stories. Imani, is this still you or is this me? I don't have the agenda up right now.
I'm
It is in
looking.
another. It
That
is me.
that's
Okay. Just want to make sure. Sorry if that
okay.
sounds, I'm screen sharing right now. Yeah. So sharing our stories, talking about our personal experiences with these things or our family's experiences, um, is a really good path to influencing legislature, across the political spectrum, right? In whether that's in school districts, I'm sure we all have seen, a big issue that we care about. Whether that is something like LGBTQ rights, right? Anything like that. People are sharing out their personal stories about how policies and things like that affect them, right? Because these do affect all of us on some kind of level. Um, People in power really need to hear that stuff directly from their constituents, so that they can be accountable and like actually, make their decisions around what is impacting those folks. So that's why we're asking, what's our experience? What is the issue or concern that we have? Why is it important? That's the key to getting our priorities funded, telling those stories, showing up with a lot of people, also explaining how it affects them. That is the way to get these things to happen, right? So I'm going to kind of go through a way to tell your story, um, and so that's kind of this here. So we can say, talk about who we are, how do you experience this issue or this priority. So, if you have an issue with transportation, talk about how, you might be a single parent and you can't get the kids to school because you have work or things like that, right? Talking about how it's impacting you. How are you working? How you are working with others experiencing the same issues, right? So, typically, if they're going to put money towards something, it's something that should be affecting a lot of people. That's going to be more compelling to them. What needs to happen? So, coming prepared with some kind of concrete thing. Do we need to hire more bus drivers? Do we need to fix the routes? Or do we just simply need to put more money toward it? And why does that need to happen now? So, having that level of personal story into it is really going to hammer in why this needs to happen now. And then what exactly do you need the school board to do? And it's okay if you don't have a clear ask yet, but having um, some kind of ask in there on what you want them to do directly is going to be really helpful, to just showing them that you mean business. So okay, I'm looking at the chat here. How do we encourage people going to school to become teachers or parapros to join as a team effort? That's a great question. So Carolyn put that in the chat about, recruiting people. I'm assuming you mean recruiting people who share our values, getting those people to become teachers and parapros. I think that's a really long-term thing, but that is an option, right? To be organizing in that way. When do we tell stories? Right. So we're going to be talking about this, but we're going to mainly talk about doing this at school board meetings and budget hearings. But I think there are also options to tell our stories like on social media and things like that. And then I see Christina Yarn, you got in here about fixing air conditioning. Love that. Changing school food. These are great issues. And with so many restrictions and stipulations, many people drop from becoming a teacher or anything to do with schools. Right, Carolyn. So I think that could also be another issue with our schools. We want to see teacher pay, teacher benefits being improved, things like that. Do we have any other comments about this section here or questions? Stopping Project 2025 through storytelling and advocacy and oversight of hidden players in our community. Calling them legislators for this. Right. So I think that goes to show like things like Project 2025, which is a national effort by the Republican Party, stopping something like that. That can be helped by storytelling, but that can also be on our local school level. So it spans, the entire spectrum of influencing decision making. Great. Love all this. All right. So we are going to take a sec here to I'm going to pull up this worksheet and send it in the chat. Give me one moment here. So if you see on your agenda, I'm going to put the agenda in the chat one more time. That's the agenda. And then we have this story of self worksheet.
You need me to drop that in there?
I got it there.
Okay.
Thank you, though. All right, let me give y'all access to this. And then what I would please ask is for y'all to make a copy of it. So let me share my screen again. So you're going to go to this template at the link, go to File, and make a copy. And fill it in on there. I'm going to pause for a sec. Did anybody have issues with this? Is everybody able to get on here? If I can get some thumbs up or reactions. Awesome. Katie, thank you.
This
Thank
is
you,
Sam.
Kim.
Yes, I got it.
Thank you, Sin. Thank you, Kim. Oh, you know what, Carolyn? I do recall that you did fill this out. Just pull that up, and you can go through that in the next part because you're gonna have folks practice. All right. So I'm gonna give people. Why don't we take until about 7:02 to have folks fill that out. So basically, we're gonna list off your name, what district you live in, or where you live, and then your district. Sorry. If you have an organization that you're working with, please put that on there. This kind of has a little briefing, right? Where you're going to say, or you can kind of customize this as you will, but essentially we're kind of giving a value statement, right? We're saying public schools are under-resourced. There are inequities. There are different educational opportunities being experienced all across the state. We want to see this changed. So basically the first question is, what are the problems your family has faced? This could be anything from, getting your kids to school, mental health support, special education services, poorly maintained school buildings, but not limited to those, of course. List off anything that y'all have experienced that you feel comfortable sharing. And then what will additional money that is put toward these things do? So I know this question just talks about school transportation, special ed, all that. It can be anything that you want to see money put towards. So what would that actually do? So, if I can use the transportation example again, if that's the issue you're dealing with, what could the extra money be used to do to improve transportation, right? And this has a little briefing of the story of us, things like that. Read through that, but essentially you just want to fill out these two questions and this top section. So, all right, since I was talking, I'll give folks till 7:04 to fill that out, and just let me know if you need more time. Yep. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to do that. And since I know that, doing this type of thing really involve, I think the hardest part about it is, doing it in front of people. So I really want to help everybody break out of their comfort zone, because I'm sure everybody has different levels of experience with speaking. And just practice with a partner right now. I started breakout rooms completely randomly. I'm just gonna have you go in there and read off what you had put on this sheet, and just kind of explain it and figure out a way to make it very what's the word, in one story, as if you're up and giving public comment, right? So imagine it without the questions there, and just try a couple different ways of formulating it as a story, and just practice it there, and give each other some constructive criticism, things like that, to help out. So I am going to open up all the rooms right now. How was that? Was it scary? Was it like talking to a bunch of board members? I hope your partner wasn't scary. But I hope it was an educational experience. How did anybody have any reactions to Katie? Thank you. Did y'all find out about any issues around, in a different part of the state that you weren't aware of? Or any issues you might have had in common with somebody else? About school infrastructure. All right. Anything in particular about school infrastructure, Katie?
So forgive me if I get the specifics wrong, Kim, but I think it was something to do with it being a very old building and it hasn't been updated in over a century. It was 150 years, if I'm not
Pretty
mistaken.
close.
Yeah.
This
So
is mine. I can talk to it.
yeah.
So I'm from Clarenceville. We are actually the oldest school district in Michigan. We are the original OGs, if you will. But our buildings were all constructed around 1940, 1950. I think the newest one is maybe 60 or 70. And I'm newer to the school board, so I'm still getting a grasp of the land, if you will. But trying to understand, do we know what the air quality, the water quality is? I'm really concerned about the aging buildings and the health impacts that they could have on our students. There's also the aspect of physical safety. We've learned so much in the last 100 years about school violence and physical safety cameras. What improvements could we make there? Is the layout of the school still efficient? Are there any improvements there? So yeah, that's kind of where my head's been at. One of the issues, at least.
That's great. Not great, but that's great that you're identifying those things, right? That's amazing. That's that first step, and that's where you kind of lead into, turning these things into actual asks, right? So if you're noticing a problem with the crumbling school building, let's say like, hey, let's allot this amount of money, toward improving, literally just the ceilings, right? Things like that. So that's fantastic. Yeah, to make those connections there. Anybody else have any takeaways from doing that? I would like to ask this: how many of y'all like have actually spoken at a school board meeting before and done public comment? The on-site officers. Oh yes, okay. Talking about SROs, Carolyn. I liked hearing about autism and neurodivergence training in schools. Brandy spoke last week. That's great. And then Katie has not spoken, but gaining the courage to do so, which is great. This is what this is all about, right? And that just goes to show, we do have a diverse group of folks here, right? People with experience doing this, and, folks who never have before. This is all great. So, all right, let's see. Official school board oversight and empowering the parents to speak for themselves in safe spaces. Yes, that is a huge tool, Rhonda. Got it, Carolyn. Okay. The officers. Christina has spoken at her school board meeting about bullying and mental health in school. Yeah, we have seriously like a celebrity here on the call. Christina is a great public speaker. We had her speak for our organization in Lansing last October. So yes, very different levels of experience here, but all good stuff. Cool.
Yeah, I encourage y'all, bring y'all youth up. Bring the students who are
Yeah.
actively being affected by the issues in the school, even if they might not be as brave to speak, just as a, there's a support in numbers and all that. Also, I like to bug
Absolutely.
board members. I like to bug them. I get their email addresses. Hey, remember me? But that's me.
That's great. Yeah. Obviously, yeah, very good to involve the youth because they are the ones like directly affected. And then also, like Imani said, like making those relationships with school board members, like is very key, right? So I'm gonna continue here. So let's see, I got my screen up. Now that we've written our story out and kind of practiced how we are gonna say it, let's think about some next steps here and tying it all together. So now that we have the story, we're going to use that to actually take action around the things that we want to see happen. So we're going to find out when and where your budget hearing and or your school board meetings are, so that you have a place to share that story. We're going to talk about the school district's budget and making sure we have power in numbers. So I want to take a sec here, find out when and where your budget hearing, or if your budget hearing happened, look up your next school board meeting. So if y'all are at a computer or phone, if you can go to your Google or any search engine, type in your school district's name and the school board meeting. Here's an example here with Battle Creek and Kalkaska. They have their meeting dates listed on their website. Kalkaska's website, it looks like they have a school board page that also has when the budget hearing is. So we talked about that earlier. And then if you can't find that budget hearing, look at last year's schedule. And sometimes they're posted as a finance committee meeting. And like I said before here, if it has happened already, go through to a regular meeting. So can we all take let's say 3 minutes, look up when that next school board meeting or budget hearing is, and send that in the chat if you could. Give you all to like 7:35 here. Y'all are rocking this here. Got Detroit, June 13th. June 10th for the regular meeting and June 3rd for the budget meeting. Brandy. June 17th, budget hearing. That's West Ottawa. Oh, okay, cool. You got a good schedule, Carolyn, for West Ottawa. June 24th for Allen Park's budget hearing at 7 p.m. Katie, nice. Give y'all another minute. Please let me know if you're having trouble finding this. Right on, cool. So now we all have, when and where to go to that public hearing, or that that school board meeting and budget hearing to give public comment, right? And I don't know how many schools have like a virtual option for that, but I think that's an option in some places. Awesome. You got the finance hearing, Rhonda. Thank you. This is great. So definitely keep this date in your calendars to go and give that public comment. I'm going to go to the next slide here. So I definitely think it's really important in this process when we're talking about the budget to actually familiarize ourselves with our school district's budget. There is a website to find this stuff here. So I'll show you how this works. And Imani, would you mind sending this link in the chat? It might be in the agenda. I think I put it in there.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Awesome. And see, thank you. Right. So I actually I already got it pulled up here. So I live in Detroit here. Let's try, actually, I might even go. This is where I grew up originally, Riverview Community Schools. Right, so this is a real breakdown and what everything is spent on. You can see instructional expenditures are almost half of the budget. Is everybody able to get onto this website and see some of this info? That's money for operations. Here's personnel costs. Oh, Sin, I see what you said in the chat. There's stat org meeting. I don't really know what that would mean, that shortened thing, but we can look on that, look into that offline. Was everybody able to get to this website though with the budget transparency? And this is just a good tool to be able to look up, what is actually going on with the budget in your school district, to seeing what they are actually allotting money to talk about where it's at currently and where it needs to be. You don't have to be exact with everything, but getting our numbers right is definitely something that's going to give you legitimacy, even more so when you're giving that public comment, right? You need that aspect of the story and personal experience, but you also need those numbers and those facts and figures like that. So that is that. Go back here. And yeah, we can, say about that there. Sorry, let me go back. Now, the final step here in having this budget advocacy. Oh, it's still loading, Katie. You know what? I noticed that earlier. It takes a while to load. Yeah, because I think they just have to pull that data from across the state. As we might have alluded to it throughout this presentation, right? And actually, Sin said something when we were in breakout rooms. She was saying to me, like, me showing up isn't gonna do much. Well, first off, I definitely will say every one of these stories and public comments is gonna matter. However, it's gonna matter even more when there are, 20 people showing up talking about school facilities or infrastructure or transportation, something like that, right? It really comes with talking with people in your school community about the issues affecting you, finding that common ground, and really coordinating some kind of, night where you're all going to go and show up for public comment about this particular comment or about this particular issue. Even have them, even if they're not speaking, right, have them come, make signs, things like that, to show that support is going to really be important to those people making decisions, right? So some tips to make it easier for people to show up, in making an invite list brainstorm. Who do I know who's impacted by this issue, or who can connect me with those impacted parents and caregivers, right? If you have, a connect to a local community organization or the union or somebody like that who can maybe help you find those other people who are dealing with the same issues as you. I know there are also support groups for certain issues, right? So, if you're a part of, a local group that does LGBTQ work, or maybe folks who are neurodivergent, coming together with those folks is going to be really good, and having some kind of coordinated action like this is so impactful to getting what we want to see happen in the budget. And then ask them in a way that that they will actually receive it. So this is kind of this handy dandy little guide here for ways to contact people. In person is going to be the best. Call is going to be second best. Text or social media is going to be third. Fourth is email. Now, is this, the case always? No, but that's kind of just, a rule of thumb that we have. And personally, like, that is what works, right? Like, actually talking to people in person is great, but also, giving them a phone call or messaging them on Facebook, things like that are going to be really impactful. And then if you have a group of people coming to the school board meeting, send that reminder a couple of days before, just so that they remember, right? So, I know we all have really busy lives. So when I looked at the attendance list, I sent most of y'all a text today, right? Like, hey, you come into our training, just to give that little reminder, because we know everybody's busy, and make it really easy for them to show up. And then if you do come with a group of folks, maybe give them a role or something like that, right? That's going to make them feel more motivated to show up, and give them that sense of purpose. So, having a note taker there, having somebody to take pictures, having someone to bring a printed list of the questions or demands, right? These things can be great. So, a note taker saying, here's who spoke, and here's how this school board member reacted to it, right? If a school board member was like, yes, we will totally, take on this demand that you all have, write that down, keep track of that, because then you can bring that back to them later, right? That picture taker, that video taker is going to be there to, have that moment for social media. So if, y'all are running a campaign for, let's say Allen Park Schools, right, for more special ed funding, let's have that video there, and then so went and spoke at that meeting, to bring that up later. It's very empowering. It helps keep a record of these things. And then also, having your questions or your demands written out is super helpful. I know I can't remember anything ever. So it's very good for me to have that written down list there. You can also do that with your public comment, of course, right? Do you have any questions about this section, or about the importance of showing up with people? Or comments, anything like that? I'd like to ask too, anybody who has done public comment or gone to a school board meeting, have you ever shown up with a group of people that all coordinated with each other like this? Got it. Yeah. It can be something that's really, impactful if you have a demand, right? I'm sure, many of us have gone to marches and protests and things like that. Showing up in numbers is really important to getting those demands. 6 of you last week, Brandy.
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah, do you want to speak to that? Oh, I heard somebody's voice. Sorry.
Oh, Drew, I think that was me. I was off mute. My bad. Please
Oh,
ignore me.
okay. No, you're good. Oh, did you have something, Imani?
Oh, nothing. I was just saying, I think that's awesome. I see, Brandy said, yes, 6 of us last week. Stan said, yeah, many years ago. Rhonda also said yes. So we've also took a bunch of kids with us up to a school board meeting. But this was more of an environmental justice ask, more and less of a school budget ask. But still, we filled up the room with kids, so it was hard to ignore us. The kids came with like signs, the ones who weren't going to speak, just to show that we're all together. Um, and it just helped with like the overall morale. They saw that when
Right.
we cut the numbers, things got done. We end up getting really good positive feedback. They were a little intimidated because they thought we were like they thought we were gonna like cause a commotion. It was like, no, we're just, this is just our support. So I will say that they thought we were coming in and there were bad intentions because we had so many people. But it turned out really well.
That's great. See, that's a great example there, right? It's you might be nervous to speak or something, but having that group there for support, even if they don't speak, is going to be really helpful. Rhonda, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, I more or less thinking about the safety factors and how they're dealing with protests and pushback in schools and universities. What sort of support do we have through MEJC to provide to our students and parents that could say in interest of building upon this empowerment structure for them to fight back? How can they? Is there any particular guidelines that we can present to them, in essence, for it to be, I'll say, more engaging and less intimidating?
Right, right. So what I'm hearing there, like, I guess I would say, so are you concerned with safety at a board meeting, or you just mean in protests in general?
Yeah, wherever it be, board meetings, what
Right.
have you, can't go into another aspect of things depending on the room
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. Absolutely. And so I would hope, yeah, I think most board meetings are going to be a safe place to go. However, if you do fear for something like that, I would suggest showing that strength in numbers. As I mean, honestly, I will say with a lot of protests, right? Having a united front of people who all feel the same is definitely gonna keep you safe. It seems like a simple answer, but that really is an important thing to do. And just being very well coordinated, right? So some of these things that we say, like having that reminder, having those roles in place, is going to be super important to keeping the herd safe. So that's what I would suggest there. And I'm sure there are other resources out there. For anything outside of that, but I think for school board meetings, you're probably good with that there. Awesome. Well, I think Imani, am I passing it back to you?
Yep.
Awesome. And if you don't mind, there is a link in the agenda, and if Imani can throw that in the chat there.
Yep, let me get it for y'all.
Awesome. And what this is basically a sign up sheet for speaking at that public comment, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'm dropping it in the chat right now for everyone. And it'll also just help us be able to track, which districts and which areas are going to their school board meetings or their school funding meetings. Because like we said before, uh, it's just more power in numbers. There's power in when we unite for one cause, or for, we all unite for the betterment of students and education. So yeah, please, when y'all go to y'all school board meetings, use this link. We can track everything, and it just really makes it easier for follow-ups and ways that MEJC can help you guys out as well.
Yep. Yeah. To build upon that, so when you do sign up here, we will get an email of that and follow up with you to help out with any extra speaking tips. So kind of expanding upon what we talked about in this training tonight. So yeah, we can do a personal conversation if that's helpful to you. Also share out resources and things like that, and also just help you with the general like flow of maybe getting people at this. And things like that. So, kind of expanding upon what we did in this training and making that whole process easier for you.
And if y'all have any youth or students who are currently in school who want to speak, I'm going to drop my email in here as well. Just like you said, we could help follow up, help kind of coach our young people with some public speaking tips and things like that, especially because we know it can be intimidated and we're adults. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And for context too, yeah, Imani runs our wonderful youth collective. So MEJC has a youth organizing collective of youth students around the state who do this sort of work. I for my role, I typically work with parents and caregivers and community members. Imani works with the youth. So I don't know how many kids do you have in there, or not? How many students do you have in there? I should say
24, 25.
24, 25, yeah. And I believe they're like kids in the UP, right? And
Oh
kids
yeah,
in
all across
Detroit.
the state. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.